Nolan was a designer by training, a content creator. He posted on TikTok, LinkedIn. One of his products really blew up. That's everything that I want to do. I literally quit my job a week after that.
Do you think distribution is becoming far more valuable than the product itself?
Yes, because building a product is becoming easier and easier. So that barrier to entry is becoming lower and lower.
Do you have a hack or a secret that you use on the daily to run your company?
One very specific thing that has helped me out a lot is LinkedIn Premium. I really wanted to go to TED AI. The only blocker was a single ticket was $1,900. So I literally went to the conference website, I pulled up all 50 speakers, and then I cold messaged every single one of them, and it worked. So I see every one of their posts basically selling their product. I'm like, man, that is just not how you do content, right? Nobody likes to see every single time.
What's the biggest mistake you see founders make when it comes to trying to earn it? If you've ever wondered whether the safe career path is actually the risky one, this episode is going to challenge everything you thought you knew. My guest today is Kathy Wang. She went from winning a Red Dot Best of the Best award at IBM and shipping million-dollar products at Dropbox to quitting her job publicly with nothing else lined up and betting everything on herself. Now, she's the co-founder of Press Club, helping founders land the press coverage they need to grow. In this convo, we're not just talking about her leap. Kathy breaks down how she built a 10,000 person audience before she ever launched a product, why distribution might matter more than what you're actually building, and what most founders get completely wrong when trying to get attention. So for the Gen Z founders, this episode breaks down how to build leverage early, time your exit right, turn on your personal brand into a launchpad, grow an audience intentionally, and also avoid the biggest press pitch mistakes founders make. Kathy, thanks so much for joining us, and I'm so glad to have you here today. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. That was an amazing intro. I can tell you've clearly done a lot of research, so I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm doing well. Based in San Francisco right now, it's like super rainy, which I really love rainy weather. But yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So, Kathy, you went from IBM to Dropbox
Yeah.
to Snorkel AI, and on paper, that's the kind of trajectory most people dream about. But then you posted publicly that you quit with nothing else lined up. So, just take us back to that moment. What made leaving less of a risk than staying?
Yeah, great question. Honestly, I think it had always been in the works for me. So, for context, after I graduated from Cornell, I moved to Austin, Texas, but I had always known that I wanted to move to San Francisco to be a startup founder. I had done this competitive startup accelerator at Cornell called eLab, and ever since then, just having peers around me who went into tech design and then went into the startup life, into entrepreneurship, that was always really inspiring to me. So I always knew I wanted to go into startup life. I think the moment where it kind of tipped the scales for me completely was Figma Config. So for those of you who don't know, Figma Config is an annual design conference, one of the biggest design conferences of the year every year. It was hosted in San Francisco, and I remember I went to see the speaker. His name is Nolan Perkins, and I remember sitting in the audience and I realized Nolan was a designer by training, a content creator. He built in public, posted on TikTok, LinkedIn, and one of his products really blew up. It was an app for people with ADHD, like a task management to-do list kind of app. Here I was thinking, he is a designer, a content creator, and a founder. Like, that's everything that I want to do. And so obviously I had always known those career paths to exist individually, but I had never seen somebody take all three and be quite successful with all three in one combined career path. So I remember that very moment, I was like, holy crap, that's everything I want to do. And so I literally quit my job a week after that. So that was kind of like the tipping moment. So I think, to answer your question, I had always wanted to be a founder, but it wasn't until kind of like last year, actually around this time, that things kind of started moving. And I think that was the final moment where I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to finally quit.
So, Kathy, you talked about staying somewhere unfulfilling felt like its own kind of failure. So, when you look at and think about our generation specifically, do you think we fear regret more than instability? And would you consider that a strength or a weakness?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think, like, when it comes to like, I consider myself millennial, but I think I'm, like, the youngest millennial, but anyways, I think Gen Z is a very, like, go for it generation, and in general, what I've noticed, even with millennials, like, these days, honestly, the job market is not the best. I think that's a well-known fact, and I feel like the general trend that I'm seeing is people prefer to have multiple streams of income, so it's actually more risky to put all your eggs in one basket by working a traditional 9 to 5. So I feel like to answer your question, ironically, the fear of instability leads to pursuing things that are more like unstable on paper, right? So like creating content, I see a lot of young people doing like more side projects, more tinkering. And so that I feel like that's a really like exciting kind of trend that I've been seeing recently, either because like just the corporate path is either something people prefer not to pursue anymore, or it's just not available to a lot of people, especially like junior talent, right? So
Mhm.
anyways, I think it's a really like exciting time.
So, Kathy, before you ever launched Press Club, you had already built an audience of over 10,000 people. So, just walk us through that like a case study. If you're starting from 0 followers today, what's the first move you would make, and which platform are you betting on?
If I were to do it all over again, I starting from 0 followers. So, for context, when I initially decided to kind of go all in on content creation after quitting my job, actually, I started like a few weeks before actually quitting my job. But then once I quit, I obviously had more time to dedicate it, so it was like full time content creation. But the way that I started was it was the beginning of March 2025, so almost exactly a year ago, and I was like, I just decided I'm gonna start posting every single day consistently on LinkedIn. I think if there's one thing I do very well, it's consistency. So I literally posted every like obviously not including weekends. I posted every day for 6 months straight. And so if I were to start over like from scratch, that's honestly what I would do. Like I would just give myself a time limit. Like, okay, I'm just gonna do this for 1 month, right? To like make it manageable. Or I'm gonna do this for 6 months and I'm just gonna see what comes out of it. Like going into it, I didn't know what opportunities would present themselves to me because you just have no idea, right? Like, for instance, you reached out to me about this podcast, and
Mm.
it was never an explicit goal of mine to like do a podcast, but it's just been really cool to like get these types of opportunities and connect with people that I just otherwise would have never known to reach out to. So yeah, I think to answer your question, just post consistently. Like give yourself a very specific goal, post consistently. And I think a lot of people are scared. I get a lot of people asking me like, how do you like come up with like a new idea that's like every single day? Honestly, it was very difficult for me at first. I did it based off of events. So I went to a hackathon and it was called Human X in Vegas. It was like a week long, or like it was a 72-hour build-a-thon. And I like milked the crap out of that. Like I posted about it for a week straight. And then after that, like it was a little bit difficult to kind of think. I was like, what things, like what more can I talk about? Like design, AI, like eventually feel like you've run out of things to talk about. But I had obviously an ongoing list, and I found that after the first month, it was actually very easy. You just kind of train your brain, you like to have the muscle of like
What
looking
type of
for
post
interesting.
then?
Yeah, yeah. Like and also I noticed when I was talking to people, if there was something like mid conversation that made them smile or made them laugh, I'd be like immediately in my head, I would clock it. I'd be like, oh,
I
that's
can
a good
post this
LinkedIn
years
post.
later, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it actually became easier and easier, and now, like, now I have a whole list of things to talk about, like, I will never have that problem again because my mind is just constantly picking up on it because 'cause it's been trained. So, honestly, I think it's very doable.
Yeah, wherever you go,
Mhm.
you can find an idea of what to post. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Kathy, like most people can't really sustain posting a week or for a month and basically no results. So when did you see your first tangible like ROI from your audience? Like was it through a client, a partnership, a revenue, or anything?
Yeah, I think after so 2 things, like, personally, building my personal brand, I think one of I didn't have like I said, I didn't have explicit goals, but one thing that came out of it just within the first month, I think I had gotten 4 speaking engagements, just purely from like, I didn't do any cold outreach, like, people reached out to me because they had seen my LinkedIn posts consistently in their feed. And then from a business sense, when I first launched Press Club, I literally just posted I made one LinkedIn post kind of launching the product, and we got around 60 qualified leads products from there. So like that's much better than having to like reach out to like 100 people and then hoping that like half of them are qualified, right? Like it's a very different dynamic comparing qualified leads who come to you and you start the conversation knowing that they already want your product versus like you reaching out and kind of having to explain and like
What
make
it
like
is.
truly selling. Yeah, yeah, like truly cold outreach. So that was really cool to see. Like I didn't intend on this happening, but it's a really nice like side effect or byproduct of having a following and having people who like are aware of you and that therefore your product.
So, Kathy, a lot of founders build a product first and then go and try to get attention. But you did it the other way around, the audience first and then the company. So, looking back, do you think distribution is becoming far more valuable than the product itself?
Yeah, honestly, yes, because building a product is becoming easier and easier. So that barrier to entry is becoming lower and lower. And honestly, when it comes to distribution, like I feel like people who are trying to build distribution just for the sake of like, oh, I want to like grow this product, I think fundamentally distribution is about two things. One, I think people crave community. For instance, like even me personally as a professional like working in AI, I'm always curious like how are other people using AI, right? Like I always like because AI is moving so fast, I always feel FOMO because I'm like, oh my gosh, like this person must be doing something really interesting with OpenClaw, right? And I always want to understand how people are doing it. So when I hosted this workshop called Command AI Design, it was basically about how to prompt like a designer. I think there's a lot of workshops out there about how to vibe code, how to do it like an engineer, but not as many about design. So I think there's a very specific perspective there. And we had over 800 people sign up and over 200 people actually show up live. So, anyways, I think that just goes to show a lot of people like crave community. They crave like just understanding how experts are doing it in the field. And then second is just being vulnerable, being authentic, they telling actual stories and not trying to come off as like a picture perfect person or like picture perfect life. I'll give you like just from my 6 months of posting every single day, I had people like coming out of the woodworks, people who I hadn't spoken to for years, like high school, college, like reaching out to me and being like, hey, like I love your content. Just like not trying to ask anything of me because I know because they didn't like follow up, like asking for a favor. They literally just messaged me saying, hey, I really love your content. Like keep doing what you're doing. So yeah, that's definitely, I think like community and like being vulnerable and authentic are really important parts of like building that distribution.
So, Kathy, if distribution beats product every time, doesn't that just encourage people to build mediocre things with good marketing?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's interesting because I think there's going to be like a lot of like billion-dollar like unicorns, right? Because it's going to require a whole new layer of infrastructure to support these new AI companies. And I think most of the news and most of the hype centers around that, right? Like, of course, everybody loves talking about the next unicorn. But I also think there's going to be a lot of companies that are like in the millions, 10 million, or like kind of lifestyle businesses, like making 1 million a year very comfortably, like passively. I think there's going to be a lot more of those. And so I don't necessarily think they're mediocre products. I just think they're more like people call them like ChatGPT wrappers, right? Like when they first came out. Honestly, don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you can make something more accessible to others that wouldn't otherwise have been able to use certain features, like if you can make AI more accessible to like people, I think that in and of itself is an accomplishment. So yeah, I think there's just gonna be more niche products, maybe like that aren't unicorns, but that people are going to be able to ship them more easily. So honestly, I'm really excited. I think there are going to be more niche products. There are going to be more lifestyle business. I think overall that's really exciting.
So, Kathy, you've climbed the corporate ladder at some of the most respected tech companies around the world. So, for someone listening who's ambitious, but unsure whether to go to the traditional route or bet on themselves early, does the ladder still make sense in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just different types of people. Honestly, this is like a very different take from like a lot of founders I hear, but like I honestly really loved corporate. Like I had a lot of fun, like just being, I also am the kind of person who really likes rules and like operating within like having my routine, operating within a certain like set of procedures. And so I actually like really really enjoyed my time there. And so I think whatever I was doing at the time, like whether it was Dropbox or Snorkel or IBM, like I just was at the right place at the right time for myself. Like it made sense for me. So yeah, but then like also right now, like I don't think I would be anywhere else doing anything else, being like a startup founder. So I think different types of people prefer different types of environments. I love wherever I was that time. So it really depends on your personality. I would say I think it's more possible for people now to become founders. I literally just read this LinkedIn post. They're like, oh my gosh, am I tripping? Like, there's so many high schoolers now that are like founders, CEOs. And I'm like, yes, like, I love that. People are more willing to like go out of their comfort zone and like actually build stuff and put themselves out in the world. But then like people who want to go into corporate, like I don't look down on that. Like it's just different types of things for different people.
So do you think like the later us, Gen Z, and even later, do you think the corporate ladder is less looked towards as like a job? Or like would you say our generation would go mostly to creating our own like products or creating our own businesses rather than just going to the corporate ladder?
Yeah, I would say so. I feel like it's so interesting, like, the game of life, it used to be like, oh, there's, like, doctor, lawyer, engineer that you could draw cards out of for your occupation. Now recently, I was playing it, and it was, like, influencer, and I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, I'm actually seeing it in this board game, and I think that's a reflection of the fact that is a very, like, real career path that people are looking to go into, right? So, yeah, I feel like the younger generations definitely have a lot more I think the advent of AI and social media blowing up, there's just so many more interesting opportunities outside of corporate. And I do think people are going to like explore those paths, even if they're not traditional right now.
Mhm. All right, mini timeout. If this episode is giving you ideas, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's free, it helps out a ton, and it means you're officially part of the community. Okay, Kathy, I want to talk about what you're building right now. So tell me, what exactly is Press Club and why do you decide that this is a problem worth solving?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So, Press Club, we basically help founders land press, and it all started because of me and my co founder. We both really value hustling and grit and cold outreach. I think cold outreach is such a big part of why I am where I am today. So, I'll tell you a story. Basically, I really wanted to go to TED AI because, of course, grew up like listening to TED speakers on stage and being inspired by them. Of course, I wanted to go to TED AI hosted in my own city, San Francisco. The only problem, the only blocker was a single ticket was $1,900. And so I remember sitting there the night before. I was like, oh, they're like, there's no way I'm about to drop 2K on a conference ticket right now. So I literally went to the conference website. I pulled up all 50 speakers and then I cold messaged every single one of them and it worked. Somebody literally responded, I think 2 hours later that night, got a free ticket, and I was sitting front row at TED AI the morning after. Yeah, so I think cold outreach works. I think people are just scared of rejection. They're scared to try it and like they're scared of bothering people coming off as annoying, but I think that is the risk that is cost of success for a lot of things, right? You have to be willing to like be cringe in order to like get what you want. That's like a lifelong principle for me, and that's also part of why we're building Press Club. Right now, it's we want to show founders that hey, it is possible to get featured in press like in Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, but you just have to understand how to reach out to people, and we basically built an external communications agent to help with outreach like that.
Kathy, how would you like email a person or how would you message a person on each platform? For like email, would you sound a lot more formal or TikTok a lot more casual? Or how would it work for like each different app?
Yeah, great question. So I think your gut instinct is right. Email is more formal. I'm going to use proper punctuation and capitalization. So, like, I'll start with TikTok. I'm actually not as active on TikTok as a creator. I'm definitely active as a consumer. But if I were to try to get brand deals now, I would probably comment a few times so that it's like my username is not like this random person on TikTok, right? It's more like, oh, this is somebody who has commented on my post before. I'm at least familiar. And that goes for LinkedIn as well. Like if there's somebody that I really want to reach out to, I would try to at least have a couple of interacts. They don't have to respond. The goal is my name should not be the name of a stranger to them. And then I would do the outreach, right? So on TikTok, obviously it would be a lot, like it would be less formal. I typically like to use LinkedIn because I've built my LinkedIn profile for a reason. It's so when people go to my profile, they can immediately, like in a 30-second glance, are like, oh, she's like legit, or she's like, this is what she talks about, right? She's done posts before. So yeah, and then to answer your question, the actual content when it comes to LinkedIn, I'll basically LinkedIn doesn't give you a lot of room to actually write stuff. So it has to be very short. I'll basically just lead with, oh, like I saw maybe like I saw a recent post of theirs, right? It has to be hyper personalized. So and be like, hey, like I saw a post about this interesting thing. I really like the way that you wrote about it. And then I'll introduce myself and then maybe drop like what I want to get out of the conversation. If it's email, I obviously have more room to go in depth. I'll start off saying, hey, I know you're busy and I saw this other cold email. I was like, I'm only gonna take 35 seconds of your time. And I was like, I love that, right? It just you're showing respect right off the bat by communicating that you are not going to take too much of their precious resource, which is time. So and then introduce myself like I'm just gonna get like right to the point. I'm Kathy. I am a design by training founder. And then I'll basically list three things where that shows like, hey, this is like why I'm legit, right? Like three things that only I can say. So when I was recruiting for design jobs, I'd be like, oh, I won a Red Dot Design Award. I previously worked at Dropbox, or I helped this product reach $1.2 million in annual recurring revenue. And then once I've established credibility, only then do I make the ask. And at the very end, I will also hyper personalize it. So if I'm for instance, I remember reaching out to Airtable because I that was like one of my dream design roles. And I said, I've been a longtime user of Airtable. I've used it for everything from tracking jobs to my friend's bridesmaid dress measurements. So something just to like really personalize. So it's like clear I'm not just like spamming everybody with the same email because as humans, we can immediately clock stuff like that, right? So yeah, that's basically how I'd format like a cold email.
So, Kathy, you won an open AI hackathon and you've worked with AI tools at Snorkel. So, you've seen both sides. But here's the honest question. Does AI make starting a company easier, or does it just raise the bar for what good really looks like?
Honestly, both. I think AI makes it significantly easier because I'm a designer by training, I'm gonna talk about it from a design perspective. As a designer, it makes it significantly easier for me to communicate ideas. I notice in corporate, there's you just like will get stuck in like hour-long meetings where people go back and forth and be like, no, we should like consider this idea, this idea. But my superpower as a designer, and in general, like designers, their superpower is being able to communicate something visually, right? So if I see a conversation like about to unfold like that, I can immediately be like, let me literally take 30 seconds and mock this up with AI and show people. And that immediately changes the course of the conversation, right? When people have something to actually critique visually, then you can move forward and be like, okay, this is what I don't like about this idea. Let's scrap it completely, right? As opposed to like going back and forth and it's almost like a battle of the egos. So that's one thing that I'm very, very appreciative of when it comes to AI. I will say the second part of your question, I think there's a lot of AI slop out there. And so you have to like weed out a lot more. That's like, yeah, I think people say, oh, the difference is people are no longer necessarily being the original creators because AI is really good with creation. Now, where humans are able to stand out is as experts who are evaluating, right? And that's where having taste matters. When you hear the word taste, you usually think it pertains to designers, but it could be like any profession, right? Like
Wide
engineer, like
variety. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like you over the years as an engineer, you develop a certain idea of what good code looks like. Same with the designer. I think that's easier to explain, right? You develop an idea of what good looks and feels like. And so you can better evaluate. So I think that's like one of the biggest things as humans that still stands between like AI SOP and like truly like what makes a product good. And so if you have that skill as a human, then I think you are able to leverage AI better. But there is a lot of AI slop out there.
So, Kathy, you help founders get press, which means you see what works and what doesn't every day. So, if attention becomes the new currency tomorrow, what's the biggest mistake you see founders make when it comes to trying to earn it? And what do the ones who do break through differently?
I think a lot of people, a lot of founders, especially like B2B SaaS, like you're so used to like selling your product to another person in a meeting. And so a lot of founders I see will then take that and apply it to content creation. And so I see every one of their posts basically selling their product. I'm like, man, that is just not how you do content, right? Nobody likes to see every single time. We're already like literally bombarded by ads, right? Whether that's on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, nobody wants to see another ad on their feed. And so what I've realized is the goal is not necessarily to sell your product in every single one. It's like more top of funnel. You just want people to be thinking of you. When people think of you as a person, then they'll like their mind will immediately go to, oh, what is Kathy working on? Press Club, right? And so, for instance, like this one founder who's just like really good with this. He's like always posting, but he posts about like like interesting different use cases of his product, right? The other day he mentioned, oh, my mom was able to use my product. So he's always like, every time I open up my LinkedIn, I like see one of his posts and I'm always like, oh, okay, like he doesn't need me to explicitly mention his product, but I'm like thinking of him and therefore I'm thinking of his product, right? And then the way that I've applied that is sometimes things that I post are like not like very tangentially related to Press Club, but that's okay, right? Like if I can capture somebody's attention long enough to read my post, then I will be top of mind the next time that they are looking for like agency to do press for them, right? Next time they do some type of cold outreach. So that's kind of the like attitude and mentality I would advise somebody to take going into content creation.
And Kathy, for our last question, do you have a hack or a secret that you use on the daily to run your company?
Yeah, I would say one hack that I was able to use recently, so cold outreach, I mentioned the TED AI story. One very specific thing that has helped me out a lot is LinkedIn Premium because using LinkedIn is very difficult if you don't have premium because you only get 5 connection requests. So therefore you can only message like 5 people before they connect with you. And so it makes a huge difference whether you have premium or not. So one very specific hack is I go to LinkedIn employees. They each have LinkedIn premium subscriptions to give out each year.
Well,
And so so if you go to like, I'll basically message 5, 10 LinkedIn employees. Of course, I'll give them a reason. I'll be like, hey, I am starting a company. It's really important for me to do cold outreach. So if you have a premium subscription to gift out, I would love to have it. And that's worked for me in the like very successfully actually in the past. And I don't think I've ever paid for premium because I've continuously gotten 6-month subscriptions from LinkedIn employees.
easy.
So, yeah, just a hack for those out there who are looking to get LinkedIn premium.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you so much for being here once again. And if this episode shifted how you think about betting on yourself, building an audience, or knowing when it's the right time to leave, don't let this stay as inspiration only. So, Kathy, one last question before you leave, and that would be like, what do you think is one chapter from your playbook that I, as a student and as a podcaster, can start implementing today in my life to build my personal brand?
Yeah, I think 2 things. One is content creation. So just do a challenge for yourself, right? Like I would set a very specific timeline. So 30 days, I'm going to post every single day. And like ideally get like a group together, get friends to do it together so you can keep each other accountable. I think that will change your life in ways that you didn't even think were possible. And then second, cold outreach. What I really liked is my friend Grace recently did a rejection challenge for 30 days, right? And each day you would reach out to somebody different that maybe you don't think would respond to you, but it trains that muscle, right, of you being able to take and handle rejection. And I think that's a really important muscle to train, especially when you're early in your career. So I would basically post and train my rejection muscle.
Thank you so much for that advice, Kathy. So you'll also find all the links to Kathy, Press Club, and all the resources you mentioned in the description below. So if you're building something as a Gen Z CEO or a founder and want more episodes like this, subscribe to the Gen ZEO Playbook podcast wherever you listen, leave a comment, and share this with a person who needs to hear it. I'm Ryan Ellie, and I'll see you in the next episode.